God, I'm tired. Shit. That needs to not be at the beginning of every episode. How about that? Let me do better. Hey everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Dance Talk Realness, a podcast where we discuss all nuances concerning education and dance, because a dance experience is an experience worth talking about. I'm your host, Truly B. I'm here with my awesome, as always, co-host, Daryl P. Hey. And today we are going to be answering a question from one of our listeners. So I'm just going to call her by her initials, PB, like peanut butter. Huh? She would get the joke. She would get the joke. All right. So PB asks, how do you teach people to perform, like to turn on or understand performance mode, and then teach them to rehearse in that mode for the best possible performance energy? So I'm going to let you go first, but I do want to say, I think these are not different conversations, but definitely different answers. At least for me, these are different modes of thinking.
So teaching people to perform and how to keep it turned on.
Mm-hmm. Like getting them to rehearse.
Getting them to rehearse in that. Mm-hmm. Well, getting them to rehearse in that is, I think, the simple answer is always practicing full out, right? Like keeping the energy high during every practice, just to make sure that, perfect practice makes perfect performance, right? So if you're practicing how you're going to perform, then you're always practicing with that level of performance in mind. Doing that in high school is sometimes very difficult because sometimes they're like, well, they've had a full day of like sitting, and sometimes they're a little tired or a little bit like over the day. So it's like, now I'm telling them like, okay, now it's time to turn on that. Take all that energy that you have building up throughout the day, let's turn it on to perform. But I think in going into the next part of that, which is like, how do you teach that? I think there's an element of like letting go and really teaching people how to find that inner motivation. And so like sometimes it's the freestyle during a routine. It's going across the floor, finding whatever beats and rhythms that you hear. It's the making a circle, everybody one at a time doing something, which seems like there's no real. You're not. Sometimes in a dance class, you feel like, oh, I'm constantly needing to teach technique, teach history, teach vocabulary. But sometimes you really have to teach those moments of just allowing students to let go and allowing students just to kind of find their own internal rhythm or internal movement quality. Because then I think once as an individual, once I know what it means to perform and to be free to express myself, I think then I'm able to receive ways in how to take that a step further, right? How to improve what it is I already have, right? I feel like I've seen students struggle with that, especially first year dance students. They've never danced before. They're in a class where maybe they're intimidated. I always have students that are like, I'm shy. And I'm like, okay, you're supposed to dance though. So,
like, that's nice.
That's nice. However, so we're getting a 0? Or what are you doing? Like, I don't. I don't know what we're doing. So, and I think as an educator, as a high school educator, I think it's always finding those moments of performance, even in class. So, when we finish a dance unit and there's always choreography at the end of the unit, I have, the students sit on one side, the other side of the room is the stage. They go up 3 at a time, press play, performance. This is your audience, right? And so it's always good for them to start rehearsing even in small spaces like this, where at least you're with peers, you're with everybody. Everybody has to go. So it's not like, I always say, somebody here who is like maybe looking, or if you feel uncomfortable, they're going to be in that same position as well. So, obviously, when you're up there, you don't want anybody to think that they're laughing at you or making fun of you. Same as like when you're in the audience, you don't want the person up there to feel uncomfortable. So I think it's that beginning of, being good audience members, being a good performer, knowing when to be ready. And so I think that then translates to the stage when it's time to perform. They've already just had that experience of being in front of a crowd and actually performing and turning that on. I definitely have seen that over the course. This is my 4th year at this school, or actually, sorry, this is my 5th year at the school, having been here for 4 years, and being able to see students go from freshmen to seniors in this program. And, they may not always be the strongest dancer, but just to see how they've grown performance-wise and to perform, I think this speaks to the work that we're doing in class every day, and just performing every year. So that's I feel like for me, that's my testimony. That's how it works in my room.
Yeah. I think, because I definitely come from the place of someone who does not like performing, which is weird because I've always, since I've been like deeply involved in the arts, it's always been a performing art. Like it was never like something behind the scenes. It's like, oh no, but you're on stage playing an instrument. Then that turned into, okay, you're on stage dancing. And I don't like being looked at. Like it is very just uncomfortable. It's the same with teaching, that it's also weird that I'm like, I actively choose this. And I hate when people are just staring at me because I'm like, oh, well, this is weird. Am I messing up? Am I saying something crazy? Am I doing something wrong? All the crazy things that can go on. So I know that is, since I know how that feels, that is something that I do take into consideration when I have those students who are just like, oh, I don't want people looking at me. Oh, I'm shy. I'm scared. And I'm like, same. But also, you still kind of have to do this. So let's see how we can work through it. And I think I know I agree with you 100% on giving them opportunities to keep performing. Often they don't see the correlation between always performing in front of their peers with how they'll perform later. And I'm like, you are more likely to get ripped apart by somebody who knows exactly what it should be than someone who doesn't know. Like you'll have a critic no matter where you are. That's just part of the game. But if you are doing some choreography that everybody who's watching you, they know it. They know if you're off beat. They know if you missed a step. They know any little quirk that's off. They can pinpoint it. If you can survive that, you can survive being in front of a bunch of people who they're not looking at those details. They're just looking at that big picture. Right. And being able to be in front of those who help you fix those details helps you clean your big picture. Yeah. And so I think helping them to kind of understand that has helped a lot of my students, the ones who were open to really pushing past that discomfort. Because you always got some who they're going to be in that back corner where the lights are dim because it's like, we did what we could. Right. Or they're going to be helping, they're going to be opening and closing the curtain. Right. They're going to be helping backstage, helping people change. They're going to earn their grade a different way. Right. But for the ones who really do push through, I have seen that really getting them to not only get used to it, but understanding why they need to get used to it. Also, I always hated this phrase, but I understand it more so now, getting them to buy in.
Yeah.
Because I'm just like, why can't you just want to be great because you want to be great? Like, why isn't excellence just the standard for everybody? But it's not, though. Right. So I'm like, okay. Well, do you want to look stupid in front of your mama and your friends? Because you know they're going to talk about you.
Right.
And they be like, oh. And I'm like, yeah, exactly. So it's finding what it is for each performer that triggers that, oh, but I don't want to look like that. I don't want to look crazy. I don't want to be embarrassed. And again, I say there are some who they are willing to be embarrassed up until the day of the show.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, it's like, oh, can we go through this again? Can we? And it's like, baby, show's tonight. We gonna pray. Like, that's all we got. That's why I told you to do X, Y, and Z. I think besides just the repeated performing in class, but getting them to do it full out, that is usually the killer. Because a lot of students, I hit this a lot in high school, low key in college, that they just really believe that they'll be able to just turn it on. And I'm like, yes, there are some who are capable, but there's so many more who are not. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm like, don't assume you're the person who can just suddenly have your energy at 100 and you've been rehearsing at 50 and below. Like what I've told students is you've taught your body that this is how we do this. So your default muscle memory is going to be one thing and you're suddenly asking it to do something else. I'm like, so even if you manage to like push through and have better energy on stage, you're going to die. Like you're going to be exhausted. And the show's gonna keep going on. Like, I'm not gonna stop the show because you tired.
Right.
Like, you have to train your body to be capable of getting through all of those things. Because you'll be tired anyway. So why make it worse? Because I think of one student in particular that she was one who could cut it on without rehearsal. She would run it full out for me usually, but she was one who could cut it on. And I'm like, okay, well, y'all can't compare yourselves to her because she has demonstrated the ability to for real cut that on. I was like, and she also 85-90% of the time does run it full out in class. And I know that she has it. But even with her being more consistent with that and having that ability, she would be tired because when you're in a bunch of dances, you're going to be tired. When you have solos, you're going to be tired. Like that's going to happen. But the difference in her tired versus some of the others was that hers was a manageable type of tired. That it's the tired that comes with physical exertion that no matter what you do, you're going to feel that. Whereas they are like, I can't breathe. I need water. I need an IV. I need all the help and assistance. And I'm like, okay, but you've never pushed your body this much. You should have.
Yeah.
I was like, and that's why, yeah, she's tired. Yeah, she's sweating, but she can take a couple deep breaths, sip of water. And she's like, all right, next piece, let's go.
Yeah.
And that's because she trained and built herself up. So it sucks, but sometimes the lesson for that one has to be taught by letting them suffer.
Right.
And like you just struggle yourself through a performance. As much as I'm horrible at remembering to record things, but I did start seeing the value towards the end of my high school teaching career, going into college, of being able to show them that video of themselves. That I'm like, okay, well, I keep telling you, these are the things I need you to do. This is how you can get the performance quality up to where we need it to be. But you need to see yourself, because sometimes they genuinely do not realize that their body is not doing what their mind is telling them it is.
Right.
Now, there are some who they're just being idiots about it. And right. So I ain't talking about them. But the ones who they really were like, I gave it my all. I was really extending my arms. I was holding my core. And I'm like, but let's play the tape back.
Right.
I'm like, the first 30 seconds, yes, you were. However, in the spot where I have consistently told you, I need you to run that part full out so you get it in your body. Do you see the level drop? Do you see how you're not on the leg? Do you see how like your face is not engaged? That is a thing also, because people do forget about their faces. Now, am I a big proponent for the overly dramatic faces? Not unless my choreography calls for it. Right. And that is a rare instance. But your face shouldn't be dead. You shouldn't look like you're not there. Like that's a part of the performance. Like you should look invested in what's happening. Like a natural expression. I don't know how else to explain that. It's like, but it's like a natural facial expression that you're present in the moment of you doing it, not your body's here running through the motions, but you're somewhere off in La La Land.
Right.
Because I know, and the listener who submitted that question, I do know that is, it could be part of the issue with some of the students that they work with. And I think that idea of, because I haven't really said it to I actually have said it to college students. I said it a lot to the high schoolers. I'm like, dance to the back of the house. If the person in the back can feel that performance, then you caught everybody on the way back there. I was like, don't dance to the people in the front row, because then the people all the way in the back, they're not going to be able to see. They won't be able to tell what that gesture was. I was like, so you always want to dance for those who are in the back of the house. And then that way, everyone between you and them, they see it too. That helped a lot of them.
Yeah.
And when running pieces, whenever we were able to like run a piece in the space, I would start slowly working my way back. And I would tell them, like, okay, well, from here, I don't see this.
Yeah.
Like, okay, that movement, yes. I felt that all the way over here by this door. Ain't even no seat back here. So if I'm catching it as I'm walking in, then you just caught the whole house. And that's what we need. I was like, so now perform it consistently like that. Which again goes back into that buy-in that they, at the end of the day, they have to want to be better. Because we can only give them the tools, we can only give them the feedback, we can provide examples, but if they don't want to excel and they don't want to improve, then there's nothing we can do.
Right.
And I don't know, this may be not the nicest sentence, but it's at that point that I'd be like, but do you need to be here anymore? Like, especially if it's in an organization that is like, okay, this isn't even your class. Like, this is in addition to things. Or shit, even if it is your class, like, do you want to pass?
Right.
Like, what you here for? Exactly. Like, what do you want out of it? When you see someone else perform and it's like top tier performance, how do you look at that? Say you want that, but then you don't do the things necessary to get there. Like, it's work for a lot of people. Which, you know, I'm sorry if you're one who doesn't come naturally to, but for most of us, it's not natural. I do well because I am able to just be like, compartmentalize all the butterflies and the I want to throw up. And I'm like, okay, but I also don't like being embarrassed.
Right.
So let me do this. And cause child, I definitely, the reminder that I am still like that came a couple years ago because I was in one of the adult dance classes at my kid's studio, and I was like, I can't embarrass myself or my babies. What we can't do is be up in here looking wild. Let me tell you, it was the one section that I was like, oh, I got this. I don't need to run that section no more. Sis went the wrong way, but high energy. To this day, I'm just like, like if you didn't know, you would think that I just had to go a different way for the next transition. No, baby, I just turned the wrong direction. That was all me messing up because I didn't run that section enough. Because I'm not a turner. I've never been. And it was like, I got it a couple times. I was like, bet we're good. We're off that. And it was like, we weren't off that for real. But even with the mistake, the performance quality was still high.
Right.
Because I'm like, okay, well, if nothing else, I am a good one for I will run the rest of the piece high energy because I don't want to die.
Right.
Like I just don't. And I don't like being embarrassed. Like I just really dislike that feeling. I would much rather suck up the butterflies and the nerves than to have to suck up that embarrassment. I would much rather. So some people just don't mind being embarrassed. Those are the ones that I'm like, what am I supposed to do with this? Because that's weird.
Right.
Yeah, no, that's not my testimony. I cannot be just out in these streets getting embarrassed.
No. And I like you said too, like I still get butterflies. I still get like that knot in the pit of your stomach, like, oh my God, I'm about to perform. Oh my God, no way, I'm gonna mess up. Oh my God, I don't know how does this start? And it's like
yes, it's like, what is the first move?
First step in it. But yeah, it's like if you have it's that muscle memory, right? And that's something that really teaching them to tap into is that you're gonna walk on that stage, you're gonna be nervous, lights are gonna come on, all of a sudden you're gonna start moving, and the next thing you know, you're gonna stop, lights are off, you're gonna come off the stage and be like, I don't remember any of that. You know, that's sometimes it's a cool feeling, right? It's that adrenaline. It's the fact that you rehearsed it. I've come off of several performances thinking, man, did I remember to do that one part in that one moment? Because it was just like such a blur that I'm like, I just stopped thinking about it. And I think that's just part of just that rehearsing element of it that I feel like, yeah, it's just that rehearsing over and over and like really getting it in tune in your body. That's the other thing that another way of teaching performance is you got to just know the choreography first and foremost.
Say that again, though.
You have to know the choreography first because I feel like you're still thinking about what's next. You're not thinking about the performance.
Exactly.
You're thinking into the steps too much. It's like once you have the steps, then it's like, okay, how can you do that bigger? How can you do that with more emotion? How can you do that with more expression? And that's when, those light bulbs start to click and it's like, oh, okay, now I see. Now I get it.
Yes, 1,000% yes. Yeah. Oh my gosh. And like people would be just so done with me that I'm like, oh no, but do this part again. Do you know what that is? They're like, well, can we move on to the next section? Can you know what this section is?
Yeah.
Because if you don't know it, how are we going to clean it?
Right.
Like we can't fix something we don't know. Like you have to know it. And in order to know it, you have to keep running it. And I'm like, is practice always fun? No. It's annoying sometimes. It's like, oh my God, this again. But like you said, like the actual performance is usually a blur. It goes by so fast. And you're like, I spent hours, days, weeks, months, sometimes working on this piece and it was done in like a couple minutes. and that was it.
Yeah.
And so you really want those couple of minutes, even though it's a blur, that if you're able to go back and see what happened, that you can stand by what happened. And it's not even about it being perfect. It's about, but did you give it everything?
Right.
But oh my gosh, it always blows me that people just really don't be knowing the choreography. I'm like,
yeah,
it don't matter how cute your costume is. If you don't know the dance, you're gonna look stupid.
Right.
I'm like, you can get up there in a leotard and tights for all I care.
Right.
I'm gonna need you to know the actual choreography. That's what I'm gonna need you to know.
Yeah.
I had another point, and then it left. Like, it did. It left. It left so quickly. It did. Wow. Struggling bus. Well, I don't remember. If it comes back, I'll bring it up. But repetition is important.
Yeah.
Oh, that's what it was.
Yeah.
Because I would tell students all the time, I don't hold after school practice. I have rehearsals. You practice on your own time.
Right.
So when you come to rehearsal, we can clean it. We can work on what we need to work on, make sure we're all on the same page. And then you go practice that on your own time. And I think that helps when they actually uphold their end. That helps with performance quality because they are taking the time on their own to really make sure that they're applying the corrections they were given and that they really have the movement down. So when we're in a rehearsal, we're not wasting time, that we're able to really hone in on, okay, now we want to do this bigger, do this. And then they have more time as, if it's a group piece, as a group, if it's a solo, by yourself, I guess. But you have more time with that direct feedback of just working on the performance quality instead of having to spend rehearsal time always having to go over the movement, over the choreography. And then I think my last thing is, it is important for the instructor to be consistent with demanding that type of quality. If you are wishy-washy about demanding that they rehearse full out, they're going to be wishy-washy with rehearsing full out. If they know every time they come in that you're about that business or you kindly remove people, they are more likely to either fall in line or, it helps reduce your numbers. You ain't got to worry about it no more. I'm always a fan of, would love to have you, do not need you. My high school band director used to say that to us, and I used to be so offended because I was like, that is rude in a mug. But in adulthood teaching, I was like, oh, I get that. Yeah. I would love to have you. I would love to have a stage full of dancers that are like getting it in, but also I don't need you. I can put a solo up there. Right. I can cut the whole damn show. We got options.
Right.
Now, I would love it, but I can move on without you. And that's not to say, or to make people feel as though they're not valuable or they're not an asset, but it is to let you know that as valuable as you may be, if you can't do this, I can still move on and I'll be all right. Like the piece will still happen. If I can't have the quartet, I'll finesse it into a trio. It's fine. Like I'll figure the thing out. Right. I would love to have you here because you are valuable. You are an asset. However, if you're not going to meet the bar that is being set, then we're going to have to part ways on this, period, point blank. So coming from our end, we have to be consistent in, all right, well, this is how this is run. It can't be that, this is how it's run when I'm talking to these students, but then over here, it's like, okay, it's all right. It's fine. I understand. It's like, no, love you across the board though. This is what it is. And I will still check on you and ask you how your day was. but you will also be pulled out of this piece.
Right.
Because equal opportunity.
Equal opportunity.
Yeah. Shoot. Supposed to be having me feeling a type of way. You're like, everybody can get cut. I've done it. Right. I'd be mad at myself when I do that mess, but also I'm like, consistency. That if I tell you I'll cut a piece, then I'm just like, well, I told y'all I would do it. I'm mad with y'all that I had to cut it, but also we weren't going to put trash on stage. So now we all know that I'm crazy enough to do it, and I'm consistent with those words. So now we're here. All right. Awesome. Thank you all for joining us yet again here at Dance Talk Realness. If you have any questions, comments, observations, anything you would like for us to discuss, please be sure to drop us a line. Make sure to like, comment, follow, subscribe across all the places where you can find us. And we look forward to bringing you some fresh new content next week. We'll see you then. Bye.